Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Allie and I make bookish content. Today I am doing the Anti-TBR tag, which was created by Nicole&Herbooks. I will link her original tag down below. It's basically the books and the authors that you have no interest in reading. So I'll be telling you all of my opinions. Without further ado, here is some book tea. The first question is a popular book that everyone loves, but you have no interest in reading. And I have a few, but for this one, I'll pick Daisy and the Six, I think it's called. It's this interview with this girl and her favorite band. Apparently the audiobook is much better than the physical read, and people have sworn by this book. It was so popular on BookTube, I think last year or beginning of this year, but it doesn't appeal to me at all. I just have no interest in reading it. I can kind of see the hype, but it's just really not the book for me. The second question is a classic book or author that you have no interest in reading. And I actually want to read some classics. I like knowing kind of the history of literature in a way. But there are still a couple authors that I have zero interest in reading, and one of them would be Jack London, who wrote The Call of the Wild, which has recently inspired a series of books and movies, which actually seem a lot better than the original book from Jack London. I think this book inspired those. If I'm wrong, y'all can let me know, but either way, it just doesn't sound interesting and not something that I'm interested in. The other author that I'm really not interested in reading is Sylvia Plath. I consider her to be a classics author because she was always pitched as one in my school when I was in high school, and we were forced to read some of her poetry, but I have no interest in reading any of her books, any of her classics, especially because I feel like they're just way too dark and really depressing and not something that I'd be in the mood for, and potentially books that would put me in a reading slump. So I'm not into that. But I am curious to see what you guys think, like what authors you would never read that are classics authors. I've seen a lot of different opinions around BookTube floating about all these different authors and why you would never want to read them and all these different classics books. So all of those opinions really interest me. So the third question is broken into two parts. So the first part is an author that you have no interest in reading. And then question 3.2 is a problematic author that you have no interest in reading. There are two that are recently, like everyone knows, really problematic. The first being J.K. Rowling, which should come as no surprise to anyone. If you don't know the tea, then please look it up. She has been really horrible. And as much as I loved the Harry Potter series when I was much younger, I will not be supporting any more of her books or endeavors. The other author that I want to mention is Rainbow Rowell. And of course, same thing, you know, she's been really horrible. She will refuse to apologize for all the misdeeds that she's done and racist things that she's done. So I just have no interest in reading any more of her books, which is really sad because at the beginning of the year I read Carry On and I loved it. I know that it's a very polarizing book just based on the story, but I love that novel, and just hearing about all these things that she's doing, I don't want to support any of her further endeavors or any of her next releases in terms of books. So the fourth question is an author that you read a couple books from and have just decided that they're not for you. And I don't really have an author for this that I've read like a couple of their books, but there is one author that recently I've just decided that I don't think any of the other releases that she has are really of interest to me. And this is Emily Lloyd Jones. She wrote The Bone Houses and I think The Hearts We Sold. I read The Bone Houses recently and it was an average read, but not what I was expecting, and definitely not the type of writing style and writing age that I want to be reading. I was expecting more young adult and I felt like I got a more middle grade. Nothing on middle grade. It's still an amazing genre, you know, level of reading, and I will read books in that level, but I feel like it was really oversold for the story. So I won't be reading any more of her books because I really just don't find that any of her other books besides The Bone Houses sound remotely interesting for me. So the fifth book is a genre you're not interested in or one that you tried to get into but just couldn't. So I used to say that I would never be able to get into sci-fi, but I stand corrected because I've read some sci-fi mangas and some sci-fi books that I think are really interesting, and even sci-fi shows and movies. I think now there are two kind of genres. One is really a subgenre and one is just a whole genre on itself. And the first one would be the history genre. I just have no interest in reading books about straight up history. I would need some kind of fantastical element or over exaggeration, but I just don't find them interesting. I'm sure that I'll read some books that talk about history in terms of modern times or future times, but nothing in terms of just straight up history. The other genre is really more of a subgenre, and that is in the romance genre. So I will read a romance book, especially if it's like a fantasy romance or romances that have like a really great plot or really complex characters. But the one romance subgenre that I really can't handle are like the romance like novelas, telenovelas that you would watch on TV that are like kind of incestuous and random and predictable and weird. I just have no interest in reading that in book form because I can't even stomach it when I'm bored on TV. So while I will read romance, and there's nothing wrong with romance, I think it's a great genre and it's valid and it's equal just like the other ones. It's just that that subgenre doesn't interest me. The sixth question is a book that you bought but will likely never read. And I do definitely get excited and just go on a purchasing binge sometimes, especially if I find books on sale or if I'm at like a bargain bookstore for like used books or like super lightly used books. I will just buy them all. And sometimes I'll just buy books off of Amazon and spend way too much money that I shouldn't on books, but I mean, isn't that why we're all here? So this book, I'm going to say The Glass Spare by Lauren Di Stefano, I believe it is. And this book at first sounded really interesting to me when I was getting back into reading fantasy, and I bought it on a whim because I found it at a bargain bookstore and I thought it sounded so amazing. It's about this protagonist who is part of a royal family but has been overshadowed for most of her life. But she or he, I can't remember if the protagonist is male or female or non-binary, but they develop these powers of being able to grow gems, and it gets kind of out of control, and thus the story proceeds. And I feel like the way I describe the book even makes it sound boring, but that's what it sounds like in my head, and I'm just like, I can't get myself to make the time to read this when I have so many other books I still need to read. The seventh question is a book series that you have no interest in reading or a series that you started and that you DNF'd. So there are a few that are really popular on BookTube and I have no interest in reading them. I know that some of you might really enjoy these series, and more power to you. I think that's great. You should just enjoy what you enjoy. But for me, I don't think I'm ever gonna really get into them. I'll never say completely never, because there will be a time where someone that I really trust will recommend this to me and say you should really read it, but I'm currently really meh about it. The first one being the Shatter Me series, and that is also because I've heard a lot of booktubers that I do trust, whose taste I really do enjoy, say that it was really boring and not really worth the time to read it, and so I don't think I'm ever gonna get into this Shatter Me series. The other one is The Raven Boys. I've actually heard really good things about this series, but I just have so many other series and books that I want to read that I don't think I'm ever going to get to the Raven Boys series and read it. I just feel like it's really, really, really low, if not off my priority list or any TBR list. And the eighth and last question is a new release that you have no interest in reading. Now, this book was released in August of 2020, so it's been a while, but I still consider it a new release since it was released this year, and that would be The Midnight Sun by Stephanie Meyer. I have no interest in reading a book about a creepy, super old vampire preying on an underage girl and probably sitting there up in his bed all night thinking about how much he wants to kill her and eat her, but also date her. Why are you rewriting the same story? So that was my anti-TBR tag. Hopefully none of you are offended. And if you are, you know, we're all entitled to our own opinions, and you're free to leave your opinions down in the comments below, but I said what I said. Yes. If you agree with any of these, if you disagree, or if you have, you know, a series of your own or books of your own that you really don't want to read, leave them down below. I'm really interested to see what you guys think and what series you guys really don't want to read. Spill the bookish tea with me, please. If you like this video, please click the like button down below. That really helps my channel, and please subscribe to me if you like my videos. Thank you.